Hey guys, I am here with Pye Jirsa from SLR Lounge. If you have been following our channel recently, he destroyed me in another competition. Let's find out who won.
Click now.
Yes!
Oh, thank goodness.
Dude, you barely beat the senior
How
portrait.
is the senior portrait that close in popularity?
Wow. I mean, people love classic portraiture. You did some pretty wacky looking post-processing on this, to me at least. I don't know how to do it. And I was asking you and you're like, oh, I just use my preset system and I can do it super fast in Lightroom. Those are called Visual Flow?
Visual Flow Development Tools.
And the whole idea here is that instead of just being standard presets that everyone does, these presets were made with lighting conditions in mind. Mm-hmm. So you could shoot an entire wedding with thousands of pictures, apply the presets depending on the lighting, and the images will all flow together at the end of the event.
Yep. Weddings, portraits, anything. It's bringing all those different images that we're constantly shooting, where most of us are shooting outdoors, outside. It's bringing all those different lighting conditions into one look. Okay.
Well, as you may have heard, I'm not the best with Lightroom. Some people even say I'm not good with retouching at all. I think you might have said that a couple of times.
I think I did.
Let's just go through it live on camera.
You want to see, because like I feel like you don't believe me. Before we're going to talk about visual flow development tools, right? But before we get into that, do you want to just see? Because I feel like I was like, this is all done in Lightroom. He's like, no. There's some sort of, what do you say, funny business?
Yeah, I call it funny business. I mean, usually I just assume it's, you can do anything in Photoshop, but Lightroom I feel is kind of clunky when it comes to retouching.
Well, here was the winning image, the winningest image.
The best image in the world, yeah.
Best. And here's the raw file for it.
Yeah, which, not too exciting, the original.
Well, getting there is like 3 clicks. Here we just applied a base color. We flip it into dark mode, and then check this out. I have these built-in dodging and burning presets. And then look at this. I can literally paint the light right into exactly where I want it around her body.
I mean, this already almost looks like your finished image.
I told you it was like a couple clicks to get there and we're done.
Now, could you paint on the tree limbs and bring some of the green back?
If I were you, I would do that, but I'm not you. So yeah, I could, but I'm not going to.
Because you don't want to ruin the image?
No, I wanted to go for that darker kind of background, but yeah, you could click over here and bring some of that back too.
Gotcha.
But I usually will bring it over skin, and then usually what I'll do is also use the range mask tool, because you can actually use this, the blend diff function in Photoshop? His eyes are
I've heard of it.
Lighting up. So if you go to range mask and you go to luminance,
I've never heard of range mask.
Yeah, you can tell Lightroom to not apply that dodge to any of the shadows. So watch, as I pull this up, do you see how it disappears from the shadows?
Where are the shadows? What are we talking about?
On her body. So I just painted in and over her body, right? But now it's only going to affect the highlights.
Oh, wow.
And I can turn the smoothness a little bit up. Then I can hit Alter Option and actually turn this power setting like up or down. So I can add more light or less light.
I had no idea that you could do this in Lightroom. Like I didn't.
The funny thing is most people honestly don't. Like most people don't dive this deep into Lightroom. They don't realize its power and potential. They go straight to Photoshop. And it's unfortunate because you can do so much in Lightroom. So we actually just released a course on that, which we'll probably have you guys sell too. Because
I thought you were going to say we're going to have you guys watch. And I was going to go, sad, but you're right. Because the truth is, I learned how to use Lightroom from watching your Lightroom tutorial just a couple of years ago. I never used Lightroom. When I was shooting weddings towards the end of my wedding career, I paid somebody to do all of my editing. Yeah. And then before that, Lightroom really wasn't a thing. Yeah. So I just always used Photoshop for individual pictures.
Well, and to your credit though, you were shooting JPEG, but you were literally shooting it correct and processed in camera.
Yeah, I was trying to get everything perfect.
There wasn't any need to go beyond that. But there is so much power and potential in this. That's why we just did a new course on Lightroom. But yeah, that's how I got to the final image.
For people who potentially, they don't want to dive deep and, purchase this or anything, could you just quickly show what that dark mode is basically doing? Yeah. Is it possible for you to do that with just sliders?
So let me just show you guys, so you guys don't have to buy anything, do anything. I'll just show you how dark mode works. The basic premise of dark mode is that you shoot an image with technically what's called chiaroscuro lighting. I don't know if I'm saying it like the Italian way, but chiaroscuro is basically just where you have light on the face and shadows in the background. So all you really need to use this dark mode technique, we have a full video on that too, you guys can check out on the SLR Lounge YouTube channel too, but it's just having the face be lit with some highlight and having some shadow in the image. So watch what happens. So see how behind her is shadow?
Yeah.
All we're gonna do is the exact opposite. It's like the Stranger Things of editing.
Okay.
You're gonna go down in exposure.
Yep.
You're gonna raise your black point all the way up. And if you want, you can raise your shadows too. But then you're gonna control skin tones with the highlights. Now, if you have other areas of highlight in the image, like in this shot, right? Here's what I would do is I would kind of bring it back to a certain point, bring my white point back to a certain point. And with that now, I would go to like my dodging lift tools and just drop it right over the face, right over the body, and lift her out. Because her face is in the highlights and the shadows, the background are in shadows, I can manipulate the light on her body very easily.
What are you holding here? Option?
Option and drag, and I can manipulate up and down.
This is Alt on Windows?
Yes, Alt on Windows. And then I can sit there and go flip this into luminance and then say, I don't want to apply it to the shadows of her body, and pull this up. So now it's applying the entire effect just to the highlights. So we're essentially doing a quick dodge and burn right inside of Lightroom using this function. So that's dark mode editing in a nutshell, is reversing everything. So instead of, usually we're used to raising our exposure, you pull down your highlights, you raise your blacks, you pull down whites. We're almost doing the exact opposite right now, where we're pulling down exposure, raising the black point all the way up, then pulling the skin tone back in this side.
I see. And if you didn't want this highlight on the rock, you could just dodge that out, kind of do the opposite of what you just did on her.
If I didn't want the highlight on the rock, Lee, I wouldn't have shot it.
Whatever, dude. you just happened to be there at the perfect moment when that highlight was
part
there.
of the plan.
All right, but let's say that it's a little too bright. You could just do the opposite.
Well, then there's plenty of things that you could do. Is you could just drag in like a graduate filter directly from the left side and just flip this over. Like inside of the presets that we're going to demonstrate, we have all your basic retouching settings already dialed in. So all we would do is go to a burn. If you don't have it and you don't want to buy it, just put in an exposure burn and drop it down, you know, and you just pull the exposure down. You can also just control highlights if you wanted to pull the highlights down, pull the white point down, but leave exposure up. But then you get to a boring image, which is probably what you like.
All right, moving on. All right.
I feel like we need to do this with all of our tutorials. Like, why can't every tutorial be a good mixture of education and trash talking?
I mean, just bring me on board and you can be like, hey, idiot, why would you do it like that when you could make it look good?
Well, technically, you're the brains of this operation, which, the hell is Patrick then?
I know, it's bad. I know.
All right, want to start first with lighting condition based?
You start wherever you think we should start, and then if you guys are professional Lightroom users, you're probably going to be really angry with the questions that I have because I don't use Lightroom that much. But if you're like me and you're a casual Lightroom user, you're probably going to really appreciate everything that I'm going to bring up because I don't know much about Lightroom. So the first thing, the presets that are showing up on the left right now, I've never used a preset in Lightroom in my entire life.
Yeah.
Does that just show up on the left side like that? Are you having to do anything to get that to show up?
So we partner with Develop, and we'll talk about why in just a minute, but there's an actual software installer that we have. So when it's purchased, it'll link to their account, they get a license, you install it, and then you'll have your presets showing up here on the left side. You'll have the retouching presets showing up in any of the brush menus.
What are you even clicking on to get it to show that
So if you press K, it'll bring the brush tool up.
Oh yeah, of course, K for brush.
Or just push the brush tool button.
Okay.
There's a brush tool in Lightroom, guys.
Didn't know.
But it'll show up with any of the radial tools, the graduate filter, it'll show up with any of these tools. You click it and you can see the effect menu, right? So when you click this, you have this is ordered in terms of workflow. So you have exposure-based adjustments to skin-based adjustments to dodge and burn-based adjustments to retouching to enhancements. These are all the retouching adjustments that are built into the Visual Flow retouching toolkit. So it's really everything you'd need to, and I'll show you because you have those wide eyes where you're like, I just don't even believe it.
There's a lot going on here, Pye.
I don't think you could do this in Lightroom. Okay, so So those are the two sets that come with it. So one is the develop presets, one is the retouching presets.
Okay. And do you get both with the system? Are these two things you have to buy? What is this?
You start by choosing a pack, like the look that you like. When we released, we came out with modern. We're just preparing right now to release pastel, which we'll do a little bit of demoing. And we'll keep coming out with more packs. So if it's the first time that you're buying it, I would recommend buying the pack that you like, if it's one or more, and combo it with the retouching toolkit, so you get a little bit of a discount when you buy them together. Most people don't like using presets because there's really no development to them. It's just somebody that does this. They're like, oh, on this image, I really want to, bring my exposure up. I want more contrast. I want to pull my highlights down, my whites down, and then I'm going to raise my shadows, and I'm going to raise my blacks, and we're going to go more contrast, and then more texture, more clarity. And they're like, maybe this looks good for this image, right? And they look at it and they're like, yeah, I really like this, and I'm going to save this out as a preset.
Yeah.
Well, if I copied these settings that I just made, and there's nothing else going on this image, so I'll just take this grouping of settings. So we'll go check none, and we'll just do basic panel, okay? We did texture and clarity. I'm going to copy just that. If I apply this to any other image, it might look good in that one scene, but if I go to this image and then I paste that,
Looks insane.
do you like it?
I do not.
Thank you. If you said that you liked this, I don't know what I would do.
Well, I can finally say, everybody's favorite YouTube comment, looked better before you did the Photoshop, bro. Looked better before you touched it.
This is literally what happens if I apply it to this image.
It looks insane.
It looks insane, right?
Yeah.
So this is how development is done in a nutshell, is that you have these presets that are just a collection of settings, people save them out and they sell them. This is not what this is. I know it looks the same.
It's under the preset panel though, Pye.
It's under the preset panel, not the same. We would argue that this is really more of a piece of software than anything. It is a piece of software built into this software. Okay, so the other issue that you run into when you start manipulating an image like this one, if you look at this full screen, you notice that skin tones are wonky. There's oversaturation in certain areas. The green tones take on like lots of yellows. You start getting just weird colors introduced into a photograph.
When you really start pushing and pulling.
When you really start pushing and pulling the image, you start introducing a lot of noise and all sorts of things that you have to compensate for. So if we actually take a virtual copy of this, so let's press Command apostrophe to create a virtual copy, and I'm going to reset this all out. So this is where our baseline is. What we would define this image as, because the whole premise of the new way of development, lighting condition-based development, is that all you do is tell Lightroom which lighting condition you shot this in. And you go, this is a high dynamic range scene. We have crazy shadows, we have crazy highlights. If we press J to look at the highlight and clipping alert, we can see that there's a little bit of shadow clipped in these like tiny corners and a bit of highlights blown, okay? So this is an HDR image. It has that U-shaped curve, right? So all you're going to do is, from the pack that you like, you select HDR, that HDR natural. Now watch, one click. Okay.
I mean, it looks totally different. So this last one that you just did looks a lot more natural. I don't know what's going, it feels like the clarity's really boosted in that first shot. Yeah. This one, I don't know. I don't remember all the sliders you did, but
well,
I certainly like this last one.
I could even take the clarity up now. If I wanted to make tweaks and like add that kind of stuff to get a little more of that impact, I could even take that up.
Okay.
And you're still not going to end up with those crazy oversaturated tones that you had on this first image. Okay. You see how the skin tone stays skin tone, right?
Yeah.
Compared to this other shot where you get a lot of pinks, a lot of reds, everything. The colors in the foreground. So the lighting condition, the preset is designed to bring all those colors back to where it should be based on the pack or based on the look that they buy.
Okay.
So the modern pack is like a warm kind of signature, good contrast, like a nice like high definition look, okay?
Yeah.
With a bit of warmth added for skin tone. When you select a different lighting condition, it makes all the adjustments necessary for that condition, then pulls all the colors back to where they should be.
Well, hold on. Let me see the before and after here again, because it feels like this first shot, it just feels like maybe you push the shadows a little too much or something. So can you just go back to this first edit, this one, and just not push it quite so far, and would it look the exact same?
No.
What is your preset doing?
So if I brought this down.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Okay.
Well, One thing, yeah, what is going on? The original image, it's got all this crazy noise color and stuff going on. So your preset has added some sort of noise reduction.
Correct.
Based on the fact that it knows that it's pushing all those shadows.
So when you select HDR, it actually adds in a set of noise reduction compensation down here based on an HDR image.
I see.
So
I see.
what you're actually seeing in all these tweaks and adjustments is the way that we've developed this is, let's say, for example, the issue that we run into as wedding, as portrait photographers is if you do, like, let's say headshots. Well, let's talk about senior portraits because it's like your favorite thing to shoot. Check out the challenge video. If you're doing like senior portraits, you might be shooting in one location with backlight, then you might go to another location, you've got hard light, then you go to another location, you're using window light. You're constantly moving from one scene to the next, right? In every one of these scenes, when the lighting condition changes, so do the colors in the scene.
Yes.
The exact same scene with overcast and the same colors is going to look dramatically different as soon as the clouds move away and you have direct sunlight.
And you are not talking about a white balance shift. You are literally saying that the colors will be different if you got the white balance perfect on each shot.
Even if you got the white balance perfect, because of the way that the light is coloring everything in the scene.
I've certainly seen that happen, you know. You shoot in direct sunlight and everything looks a little more vibrant than it does in clouds or whatever.
So the presets are designed to say, okay, you're in this lighting condition. What we do is we'll take 50 images that are shot in, let's say, hard direct light.
Okay.
We will not only make the contrast adjustment necessary for those 50 images, but then we'll say, these are the HSL adjustments down here. These are the HSL adjustments that need to be made for every single image to get the color back to where it should be.
Right.
Then we take the averaging of those 50 adjustments, we save them out as a baseline. And then we test that baseline across 300 more images on different cameras, different everything, to make sure that the preset functions correctly in that lighting condition.
So what you're saying is that anyone without purchasing your presets is capable of doing this, but you 100%. Would literally have to go down and you're moving every little slider for every image and it would just take forever.
100%. And we actually have a video teaching people exactly how to do it.
Okay.
We even showed off the preset development guide that like basically demonstrates how this is done across like different sets of, like, these are all the numbers and stuff.
Great. So if people want to create their own preset software, you just have to do it thousands of times manually, one by one.
There's a lot of math, and we don't share the actual math that kind of goes into this because we did put a patent pending onto the process that we have.
Okay.
And that's why we have a partnership right now with Canon to work on the second piece, which we'll maybe tease a little bit later. But it's an AI piece that will select the lighting condition for you.
Oh, that's what I need.
You import, it'll automatically line it up for you. You don't even have to make that decision.
Now if they can just embed that in the camera, export as JPEG right to that memory card, I'm good to go.
Magical. We have these workflow down. So this is that piece of like, yes, you could completely develop on your own. We have a complete tutorial on how to do that. That's going to be on the SLR Lounge channel on how to create powerful presets. The only trick is, if you want to create your own system that is using this format, expect to spend 80 to 120 hours, to create your own system for your own images. If you want to create a system that will work for multiple cameras and any system, then you're talking thousands of hours of testing, and this is also why we partner with Develop and all those kind of things.
Gotcha. All right, show me another image.
Let's go to another one. Let's go, we did a shot of Ioannili out here.
This is from our first challenge that you destroyed me at.
Yes, it is. Do you notice that I'm selecting only images from challenges that I've destroyed you in?
It's not true. The very last image wasn't from a challenge.
Okay, so here we have a reset file, right? This is the one where we were using a flash to kind of mimic sunlight coming from the back and this flare. So again, you look at this and you're like, that looks like it could be a couple things. It might be an HDR. We could process this a number of different ways, right?
Okay.
But let's process it with no presets first, and you just tell me kind of what looks good. So let's go ahead and just, when are you good with exposure?
You've gone too far.
Wow.
Unless you can recover those.
You know what? Let's. Okay. Now go.
You've gone way too far. Let me just do this. Let me handle this.
You do
Pye.
this.
Let me show you.
I'm gonna put a timer up.
All right. you put a timer up.
He's at 15 seconds so far. I started.
Well, now I'm second guessing myself. I want to make sure.
Oh,
this
there's
looks
pressure.
good. I don't know. Maybe I'd do that.
Anything else?
I don't know. I feel like maybe this is really bad.
You want to do tone curve?
I don't know how. This?
All right. I'm getting somewhere.
Done.
47 seconds.
Okay.
I added 5 seconds because I did part of the adjustments for you before handing it over.
Yeah.
We'll give you 42 seconds.
What's going to happen is people are going to like my edit more, and your software is going to go bankrupt.
That would be horrible.
Well,
Okay.
that's what happens when you ask me to edit an image.
Well, so let's look at. So you have this image right here. That's yours. Let's make sure that we are looking at all of our Fstopper images. There we go. Okay. So that's your edit. I'm going to go ahead and reset this out. Okay. We'll bring our panel back. All right. You got 47 seconds, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go start. We're going to go HDR natural.
That looks pretty good
And
already.
I'm going to tone back the this, and we'll add a tiny bit more No, actually the contours are good. Okay, I'm done.
All right, let me see side by
So
side.
why don't we see which one you like better?
Yeah, I like yours better. I do like yours better.
But we wouldn't get there if we didn't have a system that was actually developed correctly.
Yeah.
Because then we wouldn't get the same results consistently across different images, right? But this is that same HDR preset, which already has the skin toning. There's actually skin toning built into this.
I mean, it almost looks like her skin has been smoothed or something. Like you
Yeah.
can see a lot more.
Do you notice the blues in the skin tone here? Whereas
Yeah.
here it's neutralized.
Yeah.
So there's actually split toning built into this over the highlights and the shadows to bring the tones together based on the look. There's
Wow.
also camera calibration, everything else done. So the point is, like, we got there here in just a couple seconds with a click and an adjustment to temperature. All we want people to do is a touch temperature and contrast, and that's it.
And maybe a little exposure, right?
Maybe a little exposure if they got it off a little bit. You want to try another one?
Sure.
Okay, we'll give you a backlit image. So this one, actually, you know what? Let's give you this image.
Okay.
This is shot with a little bit of backlight and in window lighting. So there's a green window off to the right side. You know, indoor windows, they often have the tinting.
Yeah.
Kind of puts a green color cast on things.
Yeah.
So let's have you process this guy. Go ahead.
All right, ready?
Let me
Start the
start.
clock.
Go.
Let's get this white balance back in business. You know, I like that vibrant slider. Let me use some of that.
Yeah, you do.
All right, I think I'm done.
27 seconds.
Okay.
Not shabby. Let's reset this out. I'm going to reset it. So I'm going to cheat a little bit because we actually have a preset for this lighting condition. So green tinting is often a thing that you run into. Nature, these windows.
Like
all
if
that
you're
kind of
shooting
stuff.
somebody with,
And they have that green kind of light right on their face. So we have it built in. So I'm going to, you have 27 seconds. We're going to go start. I'm going to get a white balance off the eye. We're going to click green tint. I'm good. So we got 6 seconds.
And yours looks, it looks like yours has been dodged and burned or something. There's something else, as I would say, funny business going on here, but I can't put my finger on what it is.
There's no funny business. But what you're seeing is all the toning from HSL and split toning and camera calibration that's adjusting out all the unnatural tones that are there.
Well, let's go into the HSL and like toggle that on and off. Let me see what that's doing.
All right. Your wish is my command, sir. So if I toggle off HSL, that's one step. Toggle off split toning, step 2.
Hold on. Go back to the, I got to see those on and off.
Okay, here is split toning.
Yeah.
See how that's adding the warmth to the, it's unifying color tones across highlights and shadows.
Okay, let me see the HSL.
And then there's also camera calibration.
I don't even know what camera calibration is. What is that?
So this is going to basically, as the file is pulled in, I can actually make hue and saturation adjustments to each of the primary color channels on top of HSL.
Why do you need that?
It's a second layer of control. It's honestly the first layer of control. So usually we'll start here with camera calibration to get a look started. Then we're going to further tweak with HSL. Then if we need to go into individual RGB channels, we will. We kind of build layers, and then we use split toning to kind of polish it. So you're seeing 3 individual layers of color adjustments on each of these. And if you imagine like dialing in each of these things manually, that would take a very long time.
Oh yeah. And I know for me, the more I mess with stuff, it's like I'll think it looks good, and then when I'll do the before and after, I'll go, what have I done? What have I done to this image?
Okay. So for a scene like this, we would do a preset like backlighting, right?
Okay.
Where you have a backlight coming in, backlights are going to wash out contrast.
I want one more competition here. I got to win one of these.
You got to win one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more. All right, I'm going to reset this out for you, buddy. Let's give you the best chance you got. Let's close this panel so you can see everything you're doing. You ready?
Yeah, I feel like this looks good as it is.
And start.
Okay. I'm starting to think that it looked better before I started touching it.
Can't go back now.
Let's add some vibrance. That'll fix everything.
Oh, yes.
And saturation.
Oh, my goodness.
Double it up.
You sure you want to go there?
No, I don't know. Done.
Okay, you're at 40 seconds.
I'm the least confident with this edit.
39 seconds. Let's reset this out. It really didn't change all that much.
Just crush the blacks.
All right. 39 seconds. Start. I'm going to go backlit. We're going to raise the contrast. I'm going to tone back the contrast a little bit.
Raise the
Stop.
exposure, you mean?
Raise the exposure.
Okay.
I'm at 7 seconds. You're at 40.
That looks...
That's yours.
Oh.
That's mine.
Better. You win again. Yeah, what the heck's wrong with mine? So, just for my own sanity, what would you do to mine? Mine has a grungy greenish tone that seems to be over the entire thing, but it also just seems kind of dark. Do I need to boost the exposure more in mine?
Well, one is the exposure, but if you look at this tone curve, this curve actually has a baseline built-in exposure right here. So what we've done with the presets is we took those 50 images across each lighting condition, and we said, on average, with a proper exposure, so we base this off of a correct exposure, this is the amount of adjustment needed to bring the exposure up.
Okay.
That is already built into the tone curve.
Yep. But it was still very underexposed in this. Like, you had to boost.
So I boosted it a little bit because when we select backlight, it expects a washed out scene.
Okay.
So it's kind of adding a little bit, but on a scene like this where the backlighting is not very strong, you need to boost the exposure a little bit.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We could have gone a couple different, we could have used soft light for this. It would look fine too.
Okay.
But what you're missing here is, in addition, so look at our highlight adjustments aren't necessarily super off. Okay. Your exposure adjustment is actually very similar.
But I don't
0.6
have
versus 0.5.
that tone
But you're
curve.
missing the curve that boosts the rest of it.
Okay. So hold on, just try to get mine to look better. I want to see what you would do.
Okay, so I would start here.
And what's the difference pushing that rather than the exposure slider?
Because I can actually have independent control here. So I can add another point down here into the shadows to bring back contrast by pulling shadows down. That vibrance, dude, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Dude, it looks so good.
Dude,
That was the one
let's tone that back a little.
intelligent decision I made.
Okay, I would probably go back down to HSL, and this is where we're gonna start targeting different hues.
Okay,
But
see,
I also
that's when it
wanna,
gets crazy.
I also wanna start building in like the actual look, right? The actual look that I want is a look of warmth. So I'm gonna put warm tones into the highlights and in the shadows, and I need to balance those kind of correctly.
Wait, you're putting warm tones into the highlights and the shadows. Isn't that everything, or not the mid-tones?
No. So I'm putting it into everything basically to give. So I give each preset has its own distinct look, and that look is a combination of split toning, color, everything that we're doing to get the colors manipulated, right?
But what's the difference between that and just changing the white balance?
It's a very big difference. So white balance is going to adjust the entire image globally. So all the greens are going to shift, whereas right now I'm choosing just to add a specific color into the highlights and then add a specific color into the shadows.
But you said you were adding warmth to both, but they're different warm tones? Is that what you're saying?
They're different levels of warm tones with a different amount in each. This balance is putting more of the... You need to go watch the Lightroom course.
Yeah, probably.
Let's get you into Lightroom.
It's been a while.
The new one, you'll like the new one.
Okay.
It's shorter. It's your... I took 20 hours and we put it in 6.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, you're already... Okay, so then from here, we're gonna say, okay, now I think some of the skin tones might be a little bit too much. So I might start going in and targeting skin tones, targeting some of the oversaturated areas of the image, and actually pulling those down, grabbing some of the hues, and pulling those in line with one another. So I don't want it to be on the red side, I want it to be a little bit more on this side, and unifying colors across the board. And when we start doing that, we start getting somewhere close to what this look is. And you can see that this look is kind of stylized, right? It has that stylized warmth to it. But we start getting there.
Yeah.
But we spend minutes on doing this on an image. Like, this takes a long time to do this.
Yeah, and if you have thousands of images, it'd take weeks.
And then they're untested between other images in different conditions. So this is kind of the purpose of it. Okay, so these lighting conditions in a nutshell are designed. So if I said this is tungsten, right? And let's just go ahead and I would say, man, I'd love to bring the exposure up a little bit, pull the highlights, the whites. I think white balance looks okay, but let's just take a read here. And you're like, that looks okay. All right, this is where we deliver it. But if I reset all this, okay, and you can start with that white balance if you want to start there. But watch, we have tungsten right here. Tungsten is going to correct a lot of the color tones that are being thrown wonky by tungsten lighting, by that orange indoor lighting. So it tells you right next to it, tungsten is when you're indoors, 3,000 to 4,000 Kelvin. So it'll tell you right next to the preset what lighting condition.
Okay.
It gives you an idea of what this is. If I just click that, now watch, I'm gonna bring my exposure down a little bit, maybe add a little more warmth, and now you can compare these two.
Yeah.
Look at how there's extra yellow on the skin here and versus the skin here. Like, do you see how it neutralizes all that?
Yes,
Unifies the tones, pulls the back, brings all the tungsten into one. Here's another one. Let's do a different one. So look at this one.
Yeah.
If I take a white balance read on her dress, and let's say I start adjusting my exposure, what would you do to this to get it to look right?
That is what I would do.
Okay. I'm going to create a virtual copy, reset this. We'll start with that same white balance. This is what we would call a tungsten mixed light situation. This is where you have a lot of blue daylight coming in, you have tungsten on the skin tones, you have blue across, and it just looks messy. When you have this final, it looks messy. So you just select tungsten mix. This is a mixed lighting scene, and you have blue daylight.
Whoa!
Now all I'm going to do is get the right white balance and the right exposure. And now you can compare the color between these two images.
Wow. And you know, it even made the trees look better. There's all this blooming around the leaves and everything. That's that nuclear blue.
So it's pulling the greens into tones that would be consistent with tungsten lighting. It's neutralizing the blues because that's this hypersaturated tone, right? And then it's cleaning up all the oranges and yellows. It's pulling them all together, so they look more uniform.
Now, if I just wanted to do that manually in Photoshop, do I go to the HSL and I just start pulling down the blue levels? Can I grab that little eyedropper tool and just pull on her dress and
you can
pull that
manually
down?
start pulling that all out.
Can I just see what that would look like? I just want to see
in
if
Photoshop?
No, in here.
Oh, okay.
Like that original shot. So I could just grab the saturation here and grab this and start pulling this. Okay, okay, similar. Is that also affecting the sky as well? Okay, kind of similar idea.
But these settings are tested across those 300 to 500 images from different raw files.
Sure.
Whereas when you do it on one, it's just making sure that that one scene looks okay.
Right, right. Well, it's also, I mean, it sounds silly to people who aren't wedding photographers or event photographers, but simply scrolling down on the right side and having to expand one of those things and find what you need and then click and then move over and do something, people are like, oh, that's only like 10 seconds, it's not a big deal. But over the course of thousands of images, it becomes a huge deal.
Within the course of one day, we're talking about 12 hours versus 2 hours.
Yeah.
In one day.
That's insane.
Within the course of a year, I mean, you don't even think about it. I want you to develop this one. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Go.
All right, so I'm gonna take my temperature, something like that, something like that. I'm going to push my exposure to something like that, bring those highlights back. Oop, I guess they're whites. Something like that. So, can I cheat and go into HSL?
Yeah, go. No, I want you to do as much as you want to do to it.
So I'm gonna come in here. I'm already having trouble finding it. Okay. So saturation, I'm just gonna like, that doesn't look better. That one's worse. Let's try my hue.
Keep going. Do whatever else you want to do.
I don't have any other ideas. I'm done.
Okay. You're at a minute. Minute, 1 second. So I like what you did right now because you went to target saturation, but you noticed that when you just started pulling out saturation, they just went to a dead skin tone, right? You had to go to hue to start tweaking the reds to get it back to a place where it should be.
Yeah.
Reds and oranges. So I'm going to reset everything you did on my version. So this is mine. And then we'll go ahead. You want to start my timer? Okay. You started?
Go.
Oh, hold on. Do that again.
No, it's going.
Okay, all I'm going to do is select Tungsten Mix with Blue Daylight, get my right white balance, and I'm done.
All right. Let's see it side by side. So once again, yours definitely has more of a look to it. It feels like a edited image, and mine kind of still feels out of camera, you know, a little more normal. And all of my images seem to be having this overlying green tone to them. And when I'm trying to push the tint to magenta, it's not getting it out the way I want it to. And maybe again, you just have to go into HSL and really mess with stuff.
So I'm hoping that everyone can kind of see the power in this, is that what just happened right now, if you look at this, is that preset actually neutralized the blues. So if I were to apply the regular soft light preset, look at the blues that get dropped back in, because this is a tungsten situation. We have tungsten light in the face, blue light in the background. Now, if you like the soft light look, if you like stylistically, I like my blues, like that kind of mixed light look, then you just keep it there.
Yeah.
But if you want to flip it, you flip it over to tungsten. And do you see how it cleans up skin tones? It neutralizes blue, and you can choose, do I want tungsten with cleaned up skin tones with a little bit more blue, or do I want to flip it and just neutralize the blues? So you can leave the blue, but look at how tungsten, look at what it does to skin tones. This is tungsten right here.
Yeah, I mean, I love how just neutral the background is.
Yeah.
You know, I see a lot of wedding photographers currently doing this where they just have these bright, airy, perfectly white backgrounds. And I can't say my images ever really had that. My images were much more affected by the different light tones. So that's interesting.
All right, so the reason that this kind of all works, I talked about the testing that we've done to kind of get all those settings, right? We partnered with Develop in this. Develop is another company. They make the only other presets that I would describe as software. Their presets are heavily tested and they have a great profile. And you notice that if you click any of our presets, the Develop X profile is actually selected. One of the beauties in this is that the Develop X profile, we found that Develop had already done the work to basically take raw files from each of their supported cameras. These are all just the popular cameras that are being used. And they have a profile that'll basically pull the color tone into something close to basically what Adobe standard is. Okay, So they're basically taking the different color science from the different cameras and pulling them a little closer together.
Okay.
Then we took that as our baseline and built all of our lighting condition-based development on top of it. So develop is the baseline. If your camera is supported, it works beautifully. If the camera is not supported, the preset system still works. It just defaults back to Adobe standard.
Okay.
But the benefit of this is if you are a photographer and some of your people are shooting with Nikon, some are shooting with Sony, any of these brand name cameras, the ones that are broadly used are included, like they're supported. You have these different looks coming in, and now the profile itself is going to unify those to make your life a lot easier in color grading and making sure that all the cameras look the same, basically. So that's the baseline for it. That's why we partnered with Develop. Here's the other cool thing is the retouching kit, because we haven't gotten there yet. So we had your edit here. We had my edit here, which already looks good. We're going to create a virtual copy, and I'm going to flip this into dark mode just to have fun with this. Look at how crazy the change is already. So this is the soft modern look. So we have modern applied to this. We have the color there. Mm-hmm. Then we flipped into dark mode, which makes those automatic adjustments for us. From here, all I would do is like get the exposure to kind of where you want it. And I wouldn't go too much because now we can go into our retouching tools and I can actually select, say, dodge whites. And this is going to blow your mind. So, you know Pratik Nayak, mm-hmm. Danny Diamond, they taught me this cool retouching method where you basically just start with a large brush mm-hmm. and you keep shrinking the brush down as you go, right? For dodging and burning. Now they do this all in Photoshop. And I was like, I bet I can figure out a way to do that in Lightroom. So we designed special presets that affect only certain color tones. You can actually, if you don't have the preset, you can just dial this in and save this out.
So why are you selecting dodge whites?
Because I'm gonna take just the whites of her skin, I'm gonna paint a large brush, I'm gonna shrink that brush, paint it again, and I'm using just my mouse to do this. And I'm gonna keep shrinking until we have a nice highlight. And watch this, I can turn this on and off.
Wow, okay.
And have subtle dodging and burning. I can go right along the nose and say, oh, the T-zone could be a little bit more bright. And I'm applying this at 20% opacity. So you'll notice that when you look at this, it'll actually tell you retouching. This is detailed retouching. It tells you flow, oh, here it is. Dodge and burn, flow 20 to 40. So it's telling you what to bring your flow brush to. So between 20 and 40 is a good amount. And you just paint this in, shrink it down, add in your highlight.
Now, you know, I've always done similar stuff to this in Photoshop. I feel like I can kind of go back if I go too far or whatever. Each time you're clicking, is it creating a new mask? I have
now it is. So I click new, I can just create a new mask right here. Okay?
Okay.
I can shrink this down, add a little more up here, a little more to the T-zone.
But if you go too far, can you back it off or do you have to?
So Alt or Option,
yeah.
You click that slider and you just drag it to the left.
But what happens if you like went over her hair and you're like, I don't want it right over the hair? Do you have to delete that whole movement?
Alt or Option switches you to the eraser brush and you erase it from wherever you don't want.
Okay.
And I can sit there and I can flip this on and off and look at the adjustments that I made thus far.
Yeah, that looks good.
Then I can go, okay, let's go new. Let's go, and this is just gonna follow regular workflow, right? So eyes whiten, right? Let's say I wanna whiten the eyes a little bit.
And when you say whiten the eyes, are you going after the whites of the eyes or the entire eye?
This is the fun thing, we designed this to be targeted, right? So if you paint this sloppily, it's gonna look for just the whites of the eyes.
Wow.
So that's the fun part. Like, I want people to work in Lightroom with a mouse. If you gotta use a Wacom tablet, go to Photoshop. You know what I mean? Like, Lightroom's not designed for that. I want people to be able to work on the go. So the way that this is designed is they're already targeting these areas that need affecting.
Okay.
So in a whitening of the eyes, you're not even touching the blacks. So I'm gonna go now and select, let's go eyes, we'll go enhance details. We'll just drop this right over the eyes here. We have to turn up our flow a little bit. All this is gonna do is kind of sharpen, increase detail a little bit. I'm gonna go new again. It's a very dark pupil, or irises, so it's not gonna show up. Let's go lip gloss and enhance. Okay, do you see it? So just undo it.
I gotta see it before and after.
Okay.
Okay. Added a little highlight to that. That's
Let's
cool.
do.
I want to see. I want
let's
to
do
see.
hair.
I want to see the red lipstick too. I want to see what that looks like.
Watch
Oh
the
wow!
hair.
Look at that.
So I can make the hair. Just kind of add a little bit of extra shine. It's like leave-in conditioner, but for your computer.
So what is that doing? Oh, okay. It's like boosting the highlights and adding some clarity.
Yeah. And anytime you like, oh man, I did a messy job with that painting, right? You just hold down Alt-Option. You can press O to show the mask.
Okay.
You look confused when I showed the mask. So press O and then just paint off the sides. And you have your thing. Okay, so
Lipstick.
lipstick. Okay. We'll go lips, red lipstick.
What? Now, maybe you went. Did you go over the top of her lip in the middle there?
Did I?
I don't know. I need to see the before and after.
Oh.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe that's just what her lips look like.
Let's get a little bit.
All right, let me see that before and after.
Lee's like, what is happening right now?
Wow.
Okay. The fun part about this is like, I feel like personally it makes editing fun again, like as opposed to like, you know, when you go into Photoshop, you really got to get serious with like your editing. Here, it's kind of like you just get to have fun. One of my favorite things to do as well is we have these inside of the tweaks are things that we commonly do to an image. So I often will put a radial burn into my images. So it's automatically created for you. So all you do is you press radial burn, press Shift M, and now you have a burn that you can just move to wherever you want. And I can just flip this vertical. I don't have to do anything else. And then I can actually strengthen this burn by just holding down Alt or Option and dragging it to this side. So going from where we were, this is your edit. Now this is the retouched Lightroom edit in dark mode. So going from where you were, this is now the dark mode retouch edit in Lightroom.
Very interesting. Huh.
And if you're like, oh man, you know, I noticed that it's just a little bit too dark. If this were a PSD file, you'd be like, oh man, I gotta go through all those layers again. I gotta do all that stuff. But you're still working on the raw file. So if you're like, oh, you know what? And this is exactly what happened with my image that I submitted. I was like, oh, it landed a little bit too dark. I don't have to go back in any layers. I just go back to this and I'm like, oh, you know, it's a little bit dark. I can still just bring the exposure up.
Right.
So there's a flexibility there that you just don't get when you take things into Photoshop. So what we just did right now, I know this was like super in-depth, but there's actually an entire primer that comes with the purchase. So we actually have, it's less than an hour. It'll walk you through the entire system, how it works, and then show you how the entire retouching kit works over a sample set of images, which we also provide, or you can use your own, obviously. But it kind of walks people through because the system is so powerful, but a lot of people wouldn't realize how to use all the little bits and pieces. So it kind of walks everyone through it.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, when you were telling me about this, I was telling you, you know, I don't think that I'm really your target market. When I was a wedding photographer, I certainly was, but I don't shoot that many images anymore, especially groups of images where I need to edit super quickly. But this doesn't just seem like, oh, you're just calling through images and giving them a look. Like, you're really finishing these pictures. It's like I don't need to go into Photoshop anymore. So I feel like I actually could use this.
I feel like, yeah, if you're a portrait photographer.
And you know, you want to go relatively quickly. I still feel like, and I think you would admit, Photoshop with the layers and everything, it just kind of opens up so many doors. You can go further.
Sure.
But I got to tell you, I mean, everything you just did on this girl, it's exactly what I would have done in Photoshop, but you did it like 95% easier. You know, I would have had to create layers and duplicate layers, and then I'm making masks, and I'm adding clarity to certain masks but not other, and I'm adding, you know, then changing blending modes on things, but it's like it's already done for you here.
We were also working on a 50 megapixel GFX file. So this is a GFX raw file, which on a MacBook Pro, it's still working okay. So like it's functioning, it's doing really good. So I don't know. I love being able to do this in a raw file and get it to this place, because if you get it to this place and you take it to Photoshop, your work is so minimal. You know, like you're doing your fine tuning, your tweaking, and I would never say to replace it completely. I would say,
what would you do in Photoshop from here that you wouldn't feel comfortable doing in Lightroom?
Like there's a little bit more, if you want very precision control over your dodge and burn to the point where you want to do basically frequency separation, you want to manipulate and dodge and burn individual pores, that's all Photoshop.
Okay.
You want to go and start getting rid of flyaways, you want to go really retouch and like kind of remove, reshape, that's Photoshop. But for the vast majority of us that are creating images for print, for albums, for Instagram, this is already more than what most people are currently doing with Photoshop.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if anybody is interested in this software, this is called Visual Flow.
Visual Flow Development Tools.
Let's talk about price and what people actually get, because it's not just one thing, right? You buy individual packs. Mm-hmm. So how does that work?
So I would recommend that if you're just jumping in, choose the pack that best fits your look. By the time this is released, we'll probably have pastel available too. But whenever you buy a pack, you can buy it with the retouching toolkit. When you buy it the first time, get it with the retouching toolkit so you have it.
Okay.
Now, at that point, if you see additional packs that you like, when you buy those individual packs, they're like half price. So basically when you buy it the first time, you're buying the retouching toolkit and a pack. Then the second time, you're just adding packs and whatnot.
Okay.
So they can do that as they see fit.
And then what type of person would want multiple packs? I would imagine that a lot of photographers, they have a certain look maybe for weddings, but then they would want the pastel look if they were shooting family portraits or something like that.
Yeah. Or
would you ever, I guess what I'm asking is, would you ever shoot one event and use some modern and some pastel in that event?
Usually not. Like, we'll usually select a pack or a look per shoot, and we don't necessarily change that a lot. So like our typical style, like the Pye Jirsa style, is that modern look, right? But we do have a lot of clients that come to us and they're like, we want a pastel kind of look, and that's why we have that second pack developed. We also have a lot of clients that come and say, I want a really highly stylized, high contrast look. So it could be per client that you're doing it. It might just be for your own fun. Like I love when I'm editing my own work, my own personal stuff, I'll just choose the pack that I feel like best fits the vibe I'm going for. So it's fun to be creative and kind of play with things.
Maybe my retouching will get a little bit better.
Think you'll beat me next challenge?
Oh, absolutely. I don't need this to beat you though.
You better not shoot a high school portrait and be like, I used your presets.
Well, your presets suck, man. It still looks like a high school portrait. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
See ya.